This is our house right here, actually. In 1895, we believe, there was a working trolley that went down Main Street. They were widening the street at this point when this picture was taken. So this whole idea of electrification isn't exactly new. I mean, we had working trolleys going up and down Main Street in the 1890s in this town, you know, which are now long gone, unfortunately. This is the house in its previous present state. AC in the windows, which we hated. There was no ductwork. Natural gas for the heat, radiators all over the place in here. They're long gone. Failing double pane windows. We had it as a downstairs rental unit, as you all know. Just took you through that whole thing. Sold it off as a condo. And then we kind of put all this together. So this is actually from a book, this idea of how you think about high performance home around the economics of doing this stuff. It's a book called Pretty Good House. This little chart comes directly from this book. This book, Pretty Good House, a bunch of builders up in Maine have done this. So rather than going to the extremes of this new building type called passive house, which is a really rigorous building envelope focus, they're just trying to do things that make sense for typical home owners, home buyers, right? Not make it crazy expensive, make it be something that you can do, and you end up with a pretty damn good house. It's a great, great book on building science. Really, really useful tool. I love this book. Hard to get right now. So the idea of this is everything's based on the economics, right? Value engineering, that's what the VE part of this is, right? We're making choices so that it makes sense for the home owner to make these moves. The thermal envelope, the HVAC, the water and moisture content are critical issues when you get to high performance buildings. You have to get that right, but how do you do it economically, right? So the no-brainer here was the mini splits. So this is actually a picture of the mini split that was over there before, when it was in the midst of demo. I asked my builder, we had an old natural gas system, did this extensive renovation. We weren't gonna do it without AC. So I said, what's a new natural gas system gonna cost? We have no duct work. If we do AC, we're gonna need duct work. And then the AC system. He said $45,000 was his rough guess. And I said, well, what about this new technology? It does the heating and cooling. Why spend money for a heating plant and a cooling plant when you can do all in one? And he said 25K. It actually came in at 23. But the cool thing is, I got $10,000 back from Mass Save for putting in the mini splits. A $10,000 check I got in my pocket from Mass Save for doing this work, which is pretty great. And that's only one of the incentives that we're taking advantage of for doing this, right? So in reality, it was $13,000 out of my pocket for the HVAC rather than $45,000. When we talk about green being more expensive, my experience is that's absolute bullshit. We can do this better. This allowed me to make, really good investments. The heat pump hot water heater that's downstairs. So there's just same thing as this thing. It's stealing the heat from outside, moving that heat inside, and even down to -15 degrees, these work efficiently. It condenses the heat, brings it up here, and it's not creating heat, it's moving heat. So the efficiency of these units is 300%. Versus a natural gas unit that might be 96%. That's why they're cheaper to operate as well, even with high electricity prices, but there's high natural gas prices as well. So same thing down in the basement. We have the heat pump hot water heater. It steals the heat down in the basement and dehumidifies the basement as well, and then uses that heat to heat the hot water. And you can see the results of it. This is the Energy Star guideline that you put on every hot water heater. The high cost being $252 a year to operate, the low cost being $191. You can see where ours comes in. It's literally off the chart, right? And that's kind of the whole model for what we're trying to do here is really lower operating costs for homeowners. So these things on the owner's manual say 20 to 25 years. This is a little bit longer than an average hot water system, 15 years. I also spent more money on the insulation package. This was really important to me. If I'm gonna depend on these in cold weather, I wanna make sure the insulation package is the best that I can get. So this is closed cell spray foam. It has a couple of advantages. It actually increases the structural integrity of the building because this thing it solids up, and it's R7 per inch, which is killer insulation, right?
So you took all the walls.
Everything went down. This was down to the studs. Exactly right. And it was real 2x4s too, right? So rather than 1.5 by 3.5 inches that you get at Home Depot now, these were actual 2x4s from the 1890s. So we got an extra half inch of insulation out of it too. But they're also an air and water barrier too, because they're solid behind there. But the structural integrity, we think that the work that we did on the house extends the life of the house for another 125 years, which was important for me, through this. There are some concerns with this stuff, though. It off-gases. So there's a period of time when you spray this stuff in that you got to be really careful with this. This was done right at the beginning of the spring, so they had the windows open. We didn't get back in here until October. All the off-gassing had gone off by that point. And my kids, my wife and I, we've never dealt with any kind of respiratory issues, so I wasn't really worried about that. There is some global warming potential worries about this with the blowing agent that's used. We got a specific blowing agent that cost a little bit more. So I probably spent $7,000 more on the insulation package, but remember I saved $32,000 on the HVAC choices that we made. So this made all kinds of sense, And we did a blower door test. We did a second one yesterday where we got the HERS score. But this is Advanced Building Analytics in Amesbury. They're fantastic. This guy's doing a blower door test. You'll see an example of it in just a second. But what he's doing it right now, so this is up in the primary bedroom that you saw, a place that's really tough to insulate. This is part of the reason why we use closed cell too. For a building envelope like this, it's got all these hip roofs and the turret upstairs. It's really difficult to get in there. This stuff was highly effective for that. But what he's doing right now is he's pressurized the house to this degree called 50 Pascal, and he's running around with a little smoke wand and looking for places where the smoke goes out of the house, so we know the insulation contractor didn't do all the work that they needed to do. We found probably a dozen of those, and each one of them would have added 25 to 50 bucks annually to my utility expenses, right? Because of little leaks like that, So really important, I think, to do 2 blower door tests. Most people do one at the end. Do one before you button everything up, get the insulation contractor back in there. This was an extra 500 bucks to do, but again, with $32,000 worth of savings from the HVAC, this is an investment that I want to make, to just make sure the integrity of the house is there. So that's how all of that worked. Why does this matter to you? These are the building codes that are coming up. So alterations and additions, like the one that we did here, HERS score of 70. HERS score is a rating system for the energy efficiency of the house, right? The lower, the better, kind of like your golf score, right? Ours came in at 59. The updated stretch code, if we pulled the permit a little later this year, we wouldn't have reached that number because the new requirement for a HERS score is 55. But for new construction, look what's happening here. HERS score of 42 and 45. Why are they different? Well, if you heat your home with a fossil fuel, it's a more rigorous HERS score in this state. If you go all electric, like we did here, where it's a decarbonized house, you get a little bit of a bump in there to make it a little bit easier to attain that because the state is trying to move people towards electrification. This is what's happening in the new construction and remodeling business right now, right? We're going to be selling these homes. This is the building code, right? So that's the real selling point here for all of us to understand how do we, communicate the value of this stuff to buyers that are going to be buying these homes, right? We've got to know the science behind all of this stuff. And you can see we had Advanced Building Analytics in here yesterday doing the final blower door test. I was very happy with the 59 score for what we did. I was not happy with this number right here, 9.59 air changes per hour at Pascal 50. I was hoping to get down below 7. So that's another metric for efficiency. We discovered what some of the problems were yesterday You can see that there's tape along some of the doors. You can see that there's tapes along the baseboard here. We discovered that all of that stuff needed to be caulked because the blower door test, which was depressurizing the house yesterday, so we could feel the cold air coming in at a bunch of places. And we've got to get the builder back in here to make sure that all of this is remediated. And this is the specialized stretch code. So this code that I was showing you before is stretch code communities. 299 of our 351 communities are stretch code communities in the Commonwealth. There's a new code that's just being released. This is brand new. It's never been done before. It's called the Specialized Stretch Code or the Net Zero Stretch Code. Some communities, including this one, Melrose, we're expecting about 20 communities are going to adopt this more rigorous building code, this Net Zero Energy Stretch Code. And look what's happening here. Homes less than 4,000 square feet. You can see mixed fuel or all electric. 42, 45, same thing that we saw before. Builders can also go through this building green certification scheme called FIAS, which is excellent, passive house certification. Requirements for 1 EV parking space in all new construction and the Net Zero Energy Stretch Code communities. And for homes heated with fossil fuels, a requirement for solar PV. Non-negotiable, mandated, unless it's a very shaded site. So you can see again what the state's doing. They're making it a hell of a lot easier for builders to do what we did here. And the reason that my wife and I did this is we want to compete in the marketplace when we go to sell. I've looked at my real estate crystal ball. I can see what's happening out there, right? And then homes over 4,000 square feet, even more rigorous. HERS score of 0 for natural gas fired homes. Really hard to do, and a requirement of solar PV. So you're generating more power or an equal amount of power that you're using on an annual basis. This is where the building codes are now in this state. This was all passed under, Charlie Baker signed this into law this last March 2022, called the Next Gen Climate Action Plan. So all of this is written into law. This is the rollout of these building codes, the base codes being rolled out this year. The stretch code now is already an option that communities have the ability to adopt. The specialized stretch code needs to go through some kind of town meeting. The whole town's got to agree to that. Brookline's already agreed to that. They want to move to the specialized stretch code. So that, that will kick in 6 months after the town meeting makes that a requirement. So we're seeing Brookline, Newton, Arlington, Cambridge, Arlington, Boston, wanting to adopt the specialized stretch code, the Net Zero Energy Stretch Code. This was the first blower door test. That's Matt from ABA. You can see those are the windows right over there, right, with the closed cell spray foam in there, those 3 windows. Where you guys, that's, my architect was late for every goddamn meeting, and he's walking in late here as well. So, Jay Bradley, great architect though. And this was yesterday, we were filling up. So we took the vent off because there was a lot of leakage there, filled that with foam. We were running around with tape all over the place. This is Sam and Sarah from ABA, great people, and they turned around the stretch code really, really quickly. And that's what it all turned into. I mean, it looks, I'm really proud of the way it looks. My wife and I are really psyched with the final outcome of the whole place. And, all this green stuff can really be beautiful. It can work really well, and it's more comfortable to live in. We've got AC now, and it cost us less to do the HVAC this green way than it does the traditional way. So that's the whole thing right there. Yeah.